Good morning, everyone, and welcome into the Superdome. Joining you live on NewOrleans.Football, I'm Brooke. He's Nick Underhill as the Giants come into the Dome. The Giants are 5-8, taking on a 6-7 Saints team that is hoping to stay in first place in the NFC South. Right now, there is a three-way tie for first between the Bucs, Falcons, and Saints. Still hard to believe that we are in this point of the season and still talking about the Saints having a playoff picture, but that is absolutely the case. Before we get to some of the questions on this live Q&A pregame show presented by Matt Bauer's Auto Group, let's get to what's important first. We found out about Ryan Ramczyk and Chris Olave's status, at least up until kickoff.
Yeah, we're still waiting on the final word on Chris Olave. It doesn't sound like he's going to play, but you never know. Go to the stadium, they'll check him out, see how it is. Ramczyk is not expected to play today, which I think is a huge deal for the team. Cam Irving will probably get to start there. And that's just a bad combo against, you got Thibodeau, I think he's 9th in the league in sacks. They like to blitz a lot. The quarterback sometimes falters under pressure, isn't always mentally strong. He's going to be trying to make tight window throws to knock Chris Olave without Ryan Ramczyk out there. If he's speeding himself up, could be a game where there's just a great recipe for interceptions for this Giants defense.
I was surprised that the Saints did not show their hand this week. We did see Landon Young working at right tackle and actually did not see Cam Irving at practice the last 2 days. And Nick and I at one point were talking about maybe he got cut. Obviously, they were hiding him and trying to prevent us from seeing who was playing at right tackle. But from what we're hearing, Cam Irving will likely get the start there.
Yeah, unless we're being bluffed, which you never know. They like to hold their
back
cards.
And forth.
We found out about Ramczyk a little bit earlier than they usually like us to find out about things and put it out there. So might be a little bit of subterfuge. But I'm guessing it's Cam Irving. People we're hearing from are probably pretty reliable, so I'm guessing it is going to be Cam Irving today.
Yeah, Ryan Ramczyk, we know that he's been dealing with a knee injury. Not really a knee injury, but the state of his knee has kind of broken down as his time in the NFL continues to go on. Honestly, I wonder if Ryan Ramczyk will have an NFL career beyond this season, because this is the first time we've really seen it hold him out for a game, and there's still a few games left in the season. We'll be able to see what Ryan Ramczyk's future looks like in the next few games if we don't see him, as he is still dealing with that knee issue. Other guys we are not going to see today, Isaiah Foskey and Kendre Miller, are both ruled out, as well as Peyton Turner. And the reason why Peyton Turner is ruled out is because he has been designated to return from IR. He will likely step onto a football field at some point before the season ends. What can a guy like Peyton Turner bring in at the end of the season when we know their defensive line has been pretty beat up?
Yeah. Well, first thing, I do think we'll see Ramczyk beyond this year, but his career is going to be shortened for sure. It's a degenerative knee issue. It's getting worse. It's not going to get better. There's no way to set back the clock. He's been overseas and gotten treatments and blood pallet spinning and all this stuff. It's something that he's going to be battling, but eventually he's going to lose that battle, and his career is going to be shorter than other tackles. It's just kind of the way it's going to be. As for Peyton Turner, yeah, he's dying to get back out on the field. I still think it's not probably until the last week of the season. When I talked to him a couple of weeks ago, that was the game he was eyeing. Maybe he gets ahead of that. Maybe he feels a little bit better. But they badly need more pass rushers. I mean, they are in a dire situation there. They have 13 total as a defensive line. Trey Hendrickson has 15 as a single entity. One of the biggest mistakes his team has made is letting him go. But getting Peyton Turner back out there, at least seeing him do some things would tell you that, hey, we got one guy for next year. Right now, they got Carl Granderson in empty cupboards, and that is a bad place to be.
Last thing about Saints injuries, Jamal Williams is questionable to play again. That will likely be a game-time decision. And if you are joining us on our live pregame show, you will need to be with us on the private link when the players start to roll out for warm-ups. Brandon has a camera manning the field, ready to see guys that are on the practice field. We will be live for about 10 more minutes on this public stream, and then you will need to go over to NewOrleans.Football, click that link at the very top, and that's where you will find the private link where we are members only and only going to answer members' questions only. All right, moving on. We talked about the defensive line. This secondary is going to get tested today based on Darren Waller status in this game. He came back from IR this week, and he will be up for this game. Based on what we know, the Saints give up the most touchdowns to tight ends in the NFL. It's going to be a tough task if Darren Waller is at 80% today.
Yeah, so there's three things the Saints haven't done well this season: defend outside zone runs, stop quarterbacks from running, and keep tight ends in check. And they've left that just kind of up to the scheme. They haven't had a specific plan for any of these guys this year. They don't have anyone matching up with them. You know, you'll see like people match up with Travis Kelce or whatever. And I don't know if they've seen a tight end that warrants that type of attention. Waller might a little, considering there isn't a whole lot else in this Giants offense besides Barkley. So maybe they try to match up against him, but I'm assuming they're going to just try to allow the scheme to handle him. And we've seen Jordan Howden have mistakes there. We've seen Alontae Taylor have mistakes there. Pete Werner's let up some stuff. So whatever they're going to do today, it's got to be a collaborative effort. Everyone needs to be on point. I don't like the odds. The last time they saw Waller, I think, was in 2020. He ate him up on bootlegs throughout that whole entire game. The Giants need to go back and look at that tape and do the same thing. I'd run a heat check early in the game and see if they can defend it. If they can't, I would just eat them up with that type of play all day.
This is a recipe for disaster for this Saints team, specifically the defense. You have a quarterback that's mobile and is trending up, and Tommy DeVito as the Giants' backup quarterback. They're going to have to account for him and making sure they don't let him get outside of the pocket. They got to make sure they've got tight coverage with this offensive line with the Giants. We'll see what happens if Tommy DeVito is able to break out. But not only that, you've got to deal with a Saquon Barkley, who is just a powerful runner and has been able to kind of find his legs up from underneath him with the offense getting going with Tommy DeVito at quarterback, who is now going to have Darren Waller, a total recipe for disaster for the Saints defense, a big tight end who is going to be very difficult to defend, a mobile quarterback coupled with a really, really good running back. Want to take you to Friday's press conference when Thursday's press conference when Pete Carmichael was talking to us. I thought it was interesting that he said he can be more aggressive as a play caller. The reason why I find it interesting is because we're hearing that in week 15. How can you be more aggressive as a play caller this late in the season?
Well, he's been the OC for what? There were 17 games last year, 15 this year. I'm very bad at math. They make fun of me every time I try to do it live. That's 32 games.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, he's been saying it for 32 games. Every time you ask him something, I got to do this better. I need to, do that better. And I don't know that it necessarily gets better. We've seen some stuff with, a lot of stuff we've talked about, motion, play action, stuff like that. It's being incorporated into the offense. Some plays where there's easier reads for Carr, but the aggressiveness is just kind of is what it is. And I don't really know how you get more aggressive. Like in the red zone, if your quarterback can't hit tight window throws in the red zone, I don't know how you really fix that through play calling. That's something that your quarterback has to do. So sometimes I feel like Pete takes the heat for the whole operation, which is what he should do. And I think other people should take notes from that and maybe follow his lead a little bit. But I don't really know what they can do differently. They're kind of out of players. It isn't super effective. So I don't know that you're going to fix that through play calling.
Well, and you did ask him about Derek Carr because Derek Carr wasn't going to grade himself. So you asked the offensive coordinator to give a grade, and he said Derek Carr is doing what we asked him to do. That was about all he would give.
Very vanilla.
Back to the play calling can be more aggressive. Can you be more aggressive now that you have Rashid Shaheed and Taysom Hill back and healthy?
They could take some shots down the field, but I don't feel like the shots are really the issue. It's like the middle quadrant of the field where there's just no timing, there's no accuracy, there's just people not on the same page. It's tough. I just kind of feel like they're in a stuck situation. I don't think you're going to find the cure right now for all the stuff that ails this team. It's probably outside the building if there is an answer, and I think there's questions about if there is an answer even outside of the building to kind of fix what's broken here right now. So I don't think they're going to find it over the next 3-4 weeks for sure.
I will say we did see some different things in practice. I tried to hold on to the Zach Bond news until our pregame show. For the people listening in, Zach Bond was working with the defensive line for the first time all season, that we really saw him getting an emphasis of being an edge rusher. And how can that help them today?
They don't really have anyone that's effective, so anything that you can do that can kind of free that up a little bit and maybe bring some different stuff. I thought he was just okay last week, but they're at a point where you kind of got to start throwing stuff at the window because Cam's ankle has kind of made him completely ineffective as a pass rusher. Foskey isn't giving you anything. Peyton Turner's on the shelf. Tano Passanio isn't an answer. So if you can bring Bond out there a little bit, this is crazy. It's like, but yeah, if you can bring Bond out there and get him going a little bit, maybe it helps. So try different things because you're at a spot where you just have to try different things. Like I think you're trying to hear me right now, and I have no idea if you can. So say something else, see if I can hear it back.
No, I can hear you. The question will be, can you hear me? So, Jimmy, another new thing that we saw in practice, it wasn't just that Zach Bond was working with the defensive line. We saw Jimmy Graham and Alvin Kamara get more involved in routes on air when that's typically just been, you see Jawan Johnson's maybe the only tight end that gets involved in routes on air. It's just been the wide receivers. But we've seen Alvin Kamara and Jimmy Graham finally getting involved early on in practice with the quarterbacks. That's only going to be a benefit, right, for this team?
Yeah. I mean, look, I try to get Alvin more involved in that stuff. You got to get more creative. And when you're down players, it's an all-hands-on-deck type of situation. So, for sure, yeah. If they can get you anything, run Alvin on some routes, bring 2 running backs out, do whatever you got to do to try to get some offense going. I don't know how much you can get Jimmy involved in different types of stuff because I think he is a little bit limited athletically. But if there is more for him to give, I would try to find it. And I think you have to go out there and at least make an attempt because who's going to catch passes today?
Yeah.
It isn't going to be your other receivers. You got Shaheed, probably Noah Olave, and then I don't know where else you're going with the ball.
Looking at the live chat, a lot of people are asking, is this not a game where you put Trevor Penning into the mix? Given you have Ryan Ramczyk down, do you expect to see Trevor Penning get involved at all today?
Not really. I mean, I think the ship's kind of sailed there. And, again, we said this last week on the pregame show. They're at a spot where I think that you have the coaches that need what they need, and they need to win games, and they need to be more effective in these situations. You have Penning who needs to develop and be able to take his hits on the fly. Those two things don't align right now. You have people fighting to keep their jobs. So I don't see where Trevor Penning fits in. He's going to lose his confidence, and I think that's the biggest issue they're going to have to face. How do you keep him locked in mentally going into this, going into next year? I think left tackle's in need. I don't think you can bank on him at all at this point.
I agree with you, and we're going to get a question that's similar to this later on in the chat. So if you are not a member, now is your time. Join us on the members-only private stream. We are still going to be on the public stream for a little bit longer, but for those that don't know how to sign up to be an NOF member, Nick, how do they do it?
NewOrleans.Football /subscribe. Use the code NOF, 20% off your first payment. Get locked in for the offseason, I guess. There's going to be a lot going on.
Ooh, yeah. We got some stories that are going to be coming out soon. We kind of hinted at it in last week's pregame show. We'll probably continue hinting at it until we get to the end of the season. One stat that was kind of interesting to me, looking back at their last 7 losses, in 5 of the 7 losses, the quarterback who had the most rushing yards against the Saints, who was it?
Last 7 games, most.
Because this was surprising to me. This is not a typical mobile quarterback, and he was able to pick up the most yards on the ground in 5 of the 7 losses.
I have no idea.
Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
59 yards on the ground, and so when you have a quarterback that we have seen can be mobile in a Tommy DeVito, do we expect Tommy DeVito to be over 60 yards on the ground today?
I'll guess, yeah, just because it just kind of feels like one of those days. I think they're going to try to kill him with the run. I don't think the Giants are really going to try to pass a lot, so maybe that limits some of his opportunities. But when you get the Saints in their coverage, their backs to the ball, they like to play man on third down. I mean, that's going to open it up for it. And if you're rushing Zach Bond, that kind of tells me that you're in trouble on the defensive line a little bit. So I think some of them edges are going to be open. I don't know that Bond's the type of guy that's going to kind of play with that. Like, they try to have that integrity there and not bring too much to keep that solid and kind of close off the rushing lanes. If he gets a little bit too wide, that's going to give him a spot to get out. Maybe 2 plays, you know, if you get a 30-yarder, I think you're on your way to 59 yards for sure.
All right, what are the questions from social media? We see Jameis Winston walking into the building now. Does Dennis Allen feel like he is coaching for his job today?
I think Dennis Allen is wise enough to know that he's coaching for his job every single week. And when you see someone like the Chargers fire their coach who was in a similar situation, who made the playoffs last year, he gets blown out and everything falls apart. I think those kind of things kind of hit close to home, and it's a little bit of a reminder that, you know, anything can happen. So, yeah, a bad loss could spell the end of times for you. So I think he absolutely knows that his back's against the wall. No doubt about it.
Somebody else asked, is Peyton Turner going to be playing in L.A.? I think that's probably too early for him.
I don't think we see him or Kendrick Miller against the Rams.
Yeah, I agree with you. We just saw Jameis Winston. Is there any potential that the Saints see him today on the field?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so.
What has to happen for Jameis Winston to enter into a game minus a car injury?
I think that would be it. I mean, they're taking him out, and Dennis Allen's going down with him, or he's figuring it out with him. But I don't think there's any scenario where they turn the book on him or turn the page on him and you know, start over with Jameis. I just don't think that's really an option right now. It should be, but I think they're just overly committed to Carr. And I mean, we haven't seen DA even criticize him to this point. So I just don't see that as an option.
All right, we are going to move over to the private link on NewOrleans.Football. Thank you guys so much for joining us live on the public pregame live question and answer show presented by Map Hours Auto Group. We will see you guys later this week. And for our members only, let's go ahead and get to the first question in the chat. Does anyone at NewOrleans.Football